There is a quiet misunderstanding that shapes almost every human life. The belief that something is missing, not always something specific, not always something you can name, just a subtle sense that this moment is not enough, that you are not quite there yet, that peace will come later, after clarity, after healing, after understanding. This belief is rarely questioned. It becomes the background noise of daily life. And from this belief, reaction is born. You react because you feel behind. You react because you think you need to fix something. You react because stillness feels irresponsible when you believe something is missing. But what if this belief is the only thing that is wrong? What if the exhaustion you feel is not caused by life itself, but by the constant internal movement trying to arrive somewhere else? The law of being begins here, not with techniques, not with practices, not with improvement, but with a simple recognition. Nothing is missing. This does not mean life is perfect. It means that completeness is not something to be achieved. It is something that remains when unnecessary movement stops. Most people never stop moving internally. Even when they are sitting still, something inside is adjusting. A thought arises. They follow it. A sensation appears. They label it. A feeling surfaces. They try to change it. This constant internal adjustment creates the illusion of progress, but it also creates fatigue. Not physical fatigue, existential fatigue. The kind that sleep does not fix. The kind that motivation cannot touch. The kind that makes even good moments feel thin. The mind believes this movement is necessary. It believes that if it stops reacting, something will go wrong. Something will fall apart. Something will be lost. But look closely. Has reacting ever created lasting peace? Or has it only created temporary relief, followed by more tension? The law of being is not about stopping life. It is about stopping what was never required. Reaction is not action. Reaction is delayed movement born from the past. It is memory responding to memory. Being is immediate. It does not need reference points. It does not compare. It does not correct. When you are being, there is no inner negotiation, no background commentary, no subtle self-monitoring. There is just presence. And presence does not leak energy. This is why stillness feels powerful even when nothing is happening. It is not empty. It is full of coherence. Most people confuse stillness with collapse. They think that if they stop reacting, they will lose ambition, lose control, lose direction. But reaction was never direction. It was anxiety wearing a disguise. True direction does not push. It emerges. When internal movement slows, clarity does not need to be chased. It arrives. The law of being does not ask you to suppress thoughts. It does not ask you to control emotion. It does not ask you to fix yourself. It asks you to notice how much effort is spent trying to be somewhere else, trying to be better, trying to be healed, trying to be aligned. This effort creates separation between who you are and who you think you should be. And that separation is the source of suffering. Not pain. Suffering. Pain happens. Suffering is the resistance to it. Stillness does not remove pain. It removes the resistance. And without resistance, pain does not multiply. It moves, it passes, it completes itself. This is why stillness can feel uncomfortable at first. When reaction stops, the mind feels exposed. It has nothing to hold on to. No story, no justification, no distraction. This exposure is often mistaken for danger, but it is not danger. It is withdrawal. The nervous system relearning that constant vigilance is not required. Stay here. Do not analyze this sensation. Do not label it. Do not try to calm it. Let it be seen without interference. This is not passivity. This is intelligence without movement. When you remain present without adjusting the moment, something subtle changes. Life stops pushing back. Situations lose their sharpness. Interactions soften. Timing shifts. Not because you controlled reality, but because you stopped resisting it. Reality does not respond to effort. It responds to state. It listens to coherence. When internal conflict ends, external conflict begins to dissolve. This is not magic. It is alignment. The law of being does not promise outcomes. It does not guarantee success. It does not sell certainty. It reveals a deeper order. That when you stop interfering, life organizes itself more efficiently than the mind ever could. Most actions taken from reaction are unnecessary. They create more problems than they solve. Being does not eliminate action. It purifies it. Action that arises from being is precise. It is timely. It is complete. There is no inner argument before it, and no regret after it. This is how you know action is no longer reaction. Reaction leaves residue. Being does not. After action, stillness remains. There is no need to replay the moment, no need to explain yourself internally, no need to adjust the memory. Life continues, cleanly. This is what authority feels like. Not dominance, not control. Authority over your internal state. When you no longer react automatically, you are no longer pulled. You are no longer provoked. You are no longer defined by circumstances. You respond when response is required. You remain still when it is not. This discernment cannot be learned. It emerges when movement ends. The law of being is not something you add to your life. It is what remains when effort dissolves. Nothing mystical is required. Nothing needs to be believed. You only need to stop doing what is draining you. And the deepest drain is unnecessary reaction. In this stillness, nothing is missing, not because you have everything, but because completeness was never dependent on conditions. It was covered by noise. In the next part, we will explore what happens when stillness stabilizes, when being becomes the background instead of a temporary experience, when life begins to reorganize around coherence, not because you demand it, but because you no longer interfere. At first, stillness appears only in moments, a pause between thoughts, a brief silence after emotion, a short window where nothing needs to be done. Most people think this is the goal. They touch stillness and immediately try to hold it. They try to recreate it. They try to protect it. And in doing so, they lose it. Stillness cannot be held. It stabilizes only when you stop trying to keep it. This is the subtle transition from experience to state. The law of being deepens here, not when stillness appears, but when you stop leaving it. Most people leave stillness unconsciously. They don't run from it. They drift. A thought pulls attention. A sensation demands interpretation. A situation triggers reaction. And without noticing, movement resumes. This is not failure. It is conditioning. The nervous system has been trained to equate movement with safety, to equate control with survival, to equate reaction with responsibility. Stillness feels unfamiliar because it removes these reference points. The mind asks, if I am not reacting, what am I doing? But being is not an activity. It is the absence of unnecessary activity. When stillness begins to stay, something changes in how life is perceived. Events still occur. Challenges still arise. But the internal posture is different. You are no longer leaning forward into experience. You are no longer bracing. You are no longer preparing to defend. You are present without anticipation. This is what it means for being to become the background. Thoughts appear, but they are no longer compelling. They pass like weather. You do not chase them. You do not suppress them. You do not need to resolve them. They complete themselves without your involvement. This is not dissociation. It is intimacy without interference. Emotions arise, but they are no longer amplified by resistance. They move through the body without narrative, without identity, without interpretation. This is why emotional intensity decreases without being suppressed. Nothing is pushed away. Nothing is clung to. Stillness gives emotions room to finish. The law of being does not remove humanity. It removes distortion. Most suffering is not caused by what is happening. It is caused by the internal commentary trying to manage it. When commentary quiets, experience simplifies. Pain becomes sensation. Fear becomes energy. Uncertainty becomes openness. The mind does not like this simplicity. It wants structure. It wants explanation. It wants to know what this stillness means. But meaning is not required. Presence does not need justification. As stillness stabilizes, another subtle shift occurs. You begin to notice how much of your past behavior was reactive, how many decisions were driven by avoidance, how many actions were attempts to regulate discomfort. This realization is not meant to create guilt. There is no judgment here. It is simply clarity, seeing without distortion. And with this clarity, old patterns begin to loosen on their own, not because you are fixing them, but because they are no longer fed. Reaction feeds patterns. Attention feeds habits. Being starves what no longer serves. This is why transformation feels effortless from the inside. From the outside, it may look like discipline, but internally, it feels like relief. You are no longer carrying the weight of constant adjustment. You are no longer editing yourself in real time. You are no longer managing perception. This is freedom. Not freedom to do whatever you want. Freedom from compulsion. Freedom from inner urgency. Freedom from the need to resolve everything immediately. When being stabilizes, time is experienced differently. There is less pressure, less sense of running behind, less anxiety about the future. Not because the future is guaranteed, but because you are no longer living there. You are here, fully. This presence changes how reality responds. Not in dramatic ways, not as rewards, but as efficiency. Situations resolve faster, misunderstandings clear without effort, opportunities arise without being chased, not because you manifested them, but because resistance has decreased. The law of being is not about attracting, it is about allowing. When internal movement stops creating friction, life flows with less obstruction. This does not mean everything goes your way. It means fewer things need to go against you to teach the same lesson. Life becomes less repetitive, less forceful, less confrontational, because you are no longer fighting it internally. Stillness creates a field, a coherence, and coherence reorganizes systems. This is why people around you begin to respond differently, not because you changed them, but because you stopped reacting to them. Reaction invites reaction. Stillness dissolves it. Conflict requires two movements. When one stops, the system destabilizes. Tension cannot sustain itself without opposition. This is why calm presence can de-escalate situations without words, not through technique, through state. The law of being is embodied when you no longer need to prove that you are calm. You simply are. At this stage, action becomes precise. You no longer act to discharge emotion. You act because action is required. There is no excess, no hesitation, no overcorrection. After action, there is silence again, no replay, no self-evaluation. This is how you know being is stable. It remains after movement. This stability creates trust. Not trust in outcomes, trust in yourself. Not confidence. Confidence depends on success. Trust depends on presence. You trust that whatever arises, you will meet it directly. Without avoidance, without drama, without collapse. This trust removes fear at its root. Fear requires projection. Fear lives in imagined futures. Being has no future. It exists only now. And in now, fear cannot sustain itself. This does not make you reckless. It makes you clear. You see danger when it is present. You respond appropriately. And then you return to stillness. No residue, no trauma loop, no prolonged tension. This is regulation without effort. The nervous system recalibrates to a new baseline. Stillness becomes familiar. Movement becomes optional. This is why forcing relaxation fails. Relaxation is a byproduct, not a goal. When you stop reacting, relaxation appears. When you try to relax, you are already reacting. The law of being does not require constant attention. Once stable, it operates quietly, in the background, like gravity. You do not need to think about it. You do not need to monitor it. You simply return whenever reaction appears, and each return strengthens the state, not through repetition, through recognition. You recognize movement. You do not follow it. That is all. No ritual, no affirmation, no technique, just non-interference. In this way, being deepens naturally, without effort, without time pressure, without expectation. And something important happens here. You stop measuring progress. You stop asking if you are doing it right. You stop seeking confirmation. These questions belong to the mind. Being has no metrics. It does not improve. It does not accumulate. It simply remains. In the next part, we will explore the final shift. When being is no longer something you return to, but something you live from. When reality reorganizes around this coherence, not as an event, but as a way of life. At a certain point, you stop returning to stillness. Not because you forgot it, but because you never left. Being is no longer something you enter. It is where you stand. Life continues to move. People speak. Events unfold. Decisions are made. But internally, nothing is chasing anything. This is the final shift. Not dramatic, not visible, but irreversible. You are no longer practicing presence. You are living from it. Most people think awakening looks like constant peace. It does not. Peace is an effect. Being is the cause. From being, clarity appears when needed. Strength appears when required. Silence appears when nothing is required. There is no preference, no resistance, no internal negotiation. This is why life begins to feel simpler, not easier, cleaner. There is less friction between what happens and how you meet it. You stop bracing for impact. You stop rehearsing responses. You stop preloading emotion. You meet reality as it arrives, and then it passes. Nothing accumulates, nothing sticks. This is what it means to be unburdened by experience. Not numb, not detached, but unburdened. Most sufferings is carried forward. Old reactions dragged into new moments. Old fears projected onto new faces. Old stories replayed in new situations. Being breaks this continuity. Each moment stands alone, fresh, uncontaminated. When being becomes your base, your identity loosens, not disappears, relaxes. You no longer define yourself by reaction patterns. You no longer protect an image. You no longer need to be consistent with who you were yesterday. This gives you flexibility. You can be firm without aggression. You can be soft without weakness. You can change direction without explaining yourself. This is internal sovereignty, not control over life, freedom within it. From this state, action becomes strangely effective. You say less, but words land deeper. You do less, but results stabilize faster. You wait more, but timing improves. Not because you calculated better, because you stopped interfering. Reality organizes itself around coherence. When internal noise reduces, external signals become clearer. You notice things sooner. You sense misalignment earlier. You feel when to move and when not to. This is not intuition as a skill. It is intuition as absence of interference. The mind used to shout. Now it whispers, and often it stays silent. This silence does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You no longer waste energy on situations that cannot move. You no longer argue with reality. You respond where response is effective. You withdraw where movement creates resistance. This discernment comes naturally, not from strategy, from presence. Relationships change here. Some deepen, some fall away. Not through conflict, through non-participation. You no longer feed dynamics based on reaction. Drama starves, manipulation fails, projection collapses, because you are no longer available for unconscious exchange. This may feel lonely at first, not because you lost connection, but because you lost noise. Eventually, what remains is clean connection, honest, grounded, effortless. People who meet you here feel safe, not because you reassure them, but because you are not pulling on them. You are not demanding response. You are not seeking validation. You are not managing outcomes. Your presence gives others permission to settle. This is quiet influence. No persuasion, no performance, just state. This is why stillness changes rooms, not metaphorically, energetically. Systems respond to coherence, and being is coherence. At this stage, manifestation becomes irrelevant, not because nothing happens, but because nothing is forced. You no longer try to shape reality. You allow it to shape itself around what is true. Desires still arise, but they are cleaner, less desperate, less urgent. They come from alignment, not lack. And then they do not materialize. There is no collapse, no identity damage, no resentment. Because fulfillment was never outsourced to outcome. You are complete before life answers. This is the end of seeking, not because you found something, but because the one who was seeking dissolved. There is no final realization, no permanent bliss, no special state to maintain, just ordinary life met without resistance. Waking up, working, speaking, resting, all of it happening in being. The law of being was never a teaching. It was a reminder. You were never meant to push life forward. You were meant to stand still and let life move. When you stop reacting, reality responds. Not because you commanded it, but because you stopped blocking it. This is not an achievement. It is a return. Nothing was added. Nothing was removed. Only unnecessary movement ended. And what remains is enough.